everybody, this is Pretty from It's a Pretty World. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing a partial stamping using a large background stamp set. This is from Rubbernecker and it's called Europe Travel. All I want is this Paris part of this Europe Travel background stamp, and I'm starting off with a large piece of white cardstock, and it's easier for you to start off with a larger cardstock because then you can always cut it to the size you want it. And then I'm going to take a really light ink. In my case it is antique linen, distress oxide ink. You can definitely use any lighter ink you may have in your stock. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure to ink just that part, which is the Paris part, and then I'm going to just take a wet baby wipe and dab off the excess ink from anywhere where I don't want the ink to be, and then I'm going to just stamp this onto this white cardstock. Now when I do it the first time, the impression is quite light, so I want it a little more stronger, so I'm going to repeat this process once again. I'm going to stamp using that stamp pad, remove the excess ink from anywhere where I don't want it. I can see the stamp pretty well where exactly the Paris stamp is. And then when I'm done, I take it off my misty. Now I'm ready to do the next process. For that, I've taken a micro tip black ink pen, and what I'm going to do is I'm keeping this image picture as a reference. I'm just going to start drawing sketchy lines on that Eiffel Tower. Now, you don't have to be very specific as to where you're drawing your lines. Just make sure to lay the lines where the artist has drawn the Eiffel Tower. I want it to be pretty sketchy, so the good way to go about it is not to overthink it. Just go very fast and just keep drawing some random and hold your pen really light in your hand and just randomly draw some lines, some hashtags and some crisscrosses and stuff like that. And I also added some crisscross hashtag shapes on that tower itself, just to give that what do you call the when you look at it, to give that impression that it has those bars, those metal bars all over the tower of how the Eiffel Tower looks. So you just are trying to give it an impression that it is an Eiffel Tower, and then I just draw in some extra bushes and trees. Again, nothing there is actually a tree or a bush. It's just an impression that there is something like that. You see that's just a scribble that I did. I drew in a few rectangle lines, a straight line, just to indicate their buildings at a distance. Then I also drew in a few lamps on the bridge, which I kind of looked at the stamp and I drew in that. Then I took this stamp which is called Belle from Rubbernecker as well, and I stamped her onto a white cardstock. This white cardstock is a bleed proof. What I mean by that is a Copic friendly paper, and I'm using Memento black ink, which is also a Copic friendly ink, to stamp this image onto the white cardstock. And when I was done, I was ready to color it. I did very simple coloring for her skin, so I laid the E00 onto her skin first, and then I started off by putting the darker shadows, which is E04 in my case, and I placed it wherever I thought there would be a shadow, like under her skirt, under her chin, towards closer to where her wrap is. And then I blended E04 with E11 just a little bit, and then the next color was E21, and the final color was E00. So it's very easy blending. There's not much of a space there to create any kind of what do you call, to create any fine detail. So I just did simple blending. And then for her dress itself, I took some pink colors. In my case, I took R85, R83, and R81. And what it is, I laid the shadows exactly where the artist has laid some shadows. And then I also decided to add a few extra pleats on her skirt, because I'm guessing her skirt falls down, so there would be a few not pleats exactly, like curves when it falls down. I'm just giving that indication with some colors on it, and then I blended that using my lighter inks. And when I was done, I went ahead and did the same thing for her dress top, again laying the darker shadows where I think would be where the the shadows would be, and then I blended it using a lighter shades of inks. And I did the same thing for the I don't know, it's like a wrap on her top. I did the same thing with that too, and added a little bit of pink onto her hat as well. Now I kept the colors very simple. My color scheme was just pink, gray and black, because I did not want to add a whole lot of colors for this particular card that I was making. Now for her wrap, I wanted to make it look like a faux fur. So what I did is I laid the darkest shadow using cool gray markers, and in my case the darkest was C5, and I blended that using C3 and that with C1, and then I went back to my darkest color and I added dots wherever the darkest shadow was, filling it a little bit into the lighter shading as well. And I did that again with C3, and then I repeated that with C1, making sure that I'm laying it in that respective colors that I had laid at the base, just filling it with a little bit towards the next color. What that did was it gave this really fuzzy look to the wrap, and it made it look like a faux fur. I just kept the hat very simple, drew in some shadows, added the same, blended it with the lighter color and the last color, and that's it, and the color and the hat was done. I took a black pen, and all I did is that she has a belt around her waist. I added a black pen on the gel, as well as her shoes. I did not copy color her shoes, I just kept it black. Eventually I cut that part off, so it didn't really make sense for me to color it. And then even her bangles, I just added some black pen, and also on her dress, and that was it. And then I fussy cut that entire image. Now for the inside part of this image, I used an X-Acto knife, and I fussy cut, not fussy really, I mean I cut it very close to the edge of the black line of the image, so that I could take that white spots off. And then I just used a black pen to outline the entire image so that there would be no white showing. And after that I went back to that panel that we had sketched earlier, and I took this rectangle die and I die cut it to a smaller rectangle. Then I wanted to add a little bit of detail to her skirt, so I just went back to R83, to one of the colors that I used for the skirt, and I drew in some curved lines. You want to draw the lines according to the curve of the skirt, so it looks like it is a part of the skirt, and it's not, you don't want to draw a straight line, so curving according to the skirt, and that gave a little bit of detail to the skirt. I got a little color on that fur that I had created on this wrap. What I did is, I took some blending pen and I rubbed it off, and then I repeated those 3 steps of adding the dots with 3 different colors, and it was all good to go. Now it was time to put this card together. I also took this sentiment called Lady with Class, which is also from Rubbernecker, and I embossed the sentiment onto a black cardstock using white embossing powder. I just needed to prepare the surface so I didn't get the embossing powder anywhere. And then when I was done embossing it, I did not die cut it. I cut that with my scissors and created a fishtail banner shape to that sentiment, and then I wanted to place it to the right corner, on the top corner of that note card. And I took a top folding white note card and adhered this whole panel onto the white top folding card. I did adhere the girl and the sentiment onto the sketched background using some foam adhesive, and then it was time to add a few sequins, and I was all done with this card. You'll see a finished look soon after this. Here you go. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. You have a great day. Bye bye.